welcome back to another episode of Getting Speakers Booked, a podcast by speakers for speakers, talking about our experiences, our stages, and of course, advice for all of the other speakers out there. So today, I'm super excited and thrilled to have our guest Tom with us today. Tom, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, Tom and I, we met at an event like 3 or so months ago, and he was just so
Yes.
helpful with with when as we're organizing our first event, here in Lake Mary, just giving us so much great nuggets and advice. So I'm super thrilled. I know there'll be a lot of great advice shared today. So, Tom, why don't you kick us off and just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people?
So I'm very lucky in that I've consolidated a very complex topic into like a sentence. And so I do events, I coach speakers, and sometimes I do events for speakers. So
Mhm.
I have a theater background, and that's sort of how I arrived at events. I was working at um, uh, a traveling house, they call it,
Mm.
and my joke is that I was a roadie that didn't go anywhere. The shows would come up, I would help set them up and knock them down, and then they would go along on their way. We were doing a fundraising event for ourselves, and I realized I could do events and use all of my theater skills and get paid a lot more money. So
Yes.
I um, and so and then COVID hit,
Mm.
which sucked in one way, but the government started handing out all this free money, and that was the seed money I used to start my business.
There you go. That's what it was for, actually. Very specifically, it was for Tom to start the business. No, I love that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
you can all thank me.
Exactly. Like they knew Tom needed it right now. That's perfect. Well, I would love to learn a little bit. So, obviously, I think I shared with you a little bit ago, like I was into theater when I was a kid too. And there's a lot of differences, actually,
Yeah.
despite still being on a stage. How is it for you, the difference of, being like a theater hand and now organizing your own events and being in charge of everything?
Well, and it's also like on stage too, because when I was in high school,
Mm,
I did like they call it forensics, but then you think of like CSI, like
yes.
the
Yes.
but it's a speech and debate is probably a better way to put it. And so I did individual events. And so tell me if this sounds familiar. Like you write a talk that's 10 minutes long and it needs to be well researched and it needs to have good science and all of these things. And so I was doing certain talks before there were certain talks. But then that's a slightly different skill from memorizing and getting in character. And then there's the backstage piece. And so it's all comparable, but it's not quite. It's like uh,
Like
it's like an intentional
adjacent.
side effect from a drug,
Oh, yeah.
like, like off-label use of things. Um, so yeah, so I ended up stage managing in theater because when I was in college, I would produce my own shows, and that's what gave me
Mm,
the skill set to stage manage. But I wasn't a specific stage manager, and that experience got me the job at the theater because I was also doing work at a community theater, and then and so the main difference is that like you have a very similar skill set. It's basically project management.
yeah.
When I tell people I have a theater degree, they think like jazz hands and acting like your trees. But like I spent more time hiring and firing people, putting down deposits for spaces, like very real business things that nobody thinks about. Um, and so I got into like the practicalities and the unsexy parts of like putting these things together, and that's what directly um, translates. But the mindset is different in that like because I wasn't working on Broadway, it was always like duct tape and chicken wire and how do we make this look more expensive than it is and how do we make all of the money show up on stage.
Exactly.
And that's a level of resourcefulness that you don't often see in events because the expectation at events is like, well, we'll just throw money at the problem. And you can do a lot with a little. And that's a value proposition that I think is unique to me and what we do at my company.
Yeah. No, it's so important. I remember when I was a kid, like all of our productions, like when I was doing more theater, I was very disappointed difference from dance. Like dance, we all like
Mm,
ordered like these very nice dresses and we all had to
yeah.
have by a certain time. And then I got to theater and they were like, well, this should kind of be the vibe. Like you kind of figured out your own. Like go to Goodwill, go scrap it together. And I was so upset. I was like, wait, I can't like order a nice $300 costume. My mom's like, you should be happy. I'm happy. And I'm like, I hate it. Now, growing up, I'm like, no, that's the type of thinking that you need to have. And it's given me skills that I didn't realize I was
Yeah.
getting until now. I'm like, wait, we don't have to spend so much money. We can just do this. We can consolidate. It'll be easier for everyone anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very frustrating mindset that lots of theater people have,
Yes.
but when it's done correctly,
Yes.
it is basically a laser focus on like what actually matters, and that
Mhm.
is incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, you've been on many ends of the event spectrum. You've been a speaker, you help other speakers, and then of course you organize events, you assist with events. So I would love to know, given your experience with backstage and then also on stage, what are some things that you think some more on stage speakers should know as they prepare for an event, as they get to the event, stuff like that?
So it's one of the reasons why I started learning as much as I could about everything, not just because I'm a nerd. It was sort of understanding how a clock works.
Yeah.
So every piece interrelates with every other piece in very specific ways. And so like you hear all these stories about like onset divas and this and that. And part of the reason that happens is because they either don't know or don't care about the impact they're having on the larger production.
Mm,
So if you want to be able to ask for things not just politely but effectively, you need to understand how the machine operates.
yeah.
Um, if you need to understand, like tech rehearsals from an actor's point of view are horrible because there's so much hurry up and wait. It's sitting around for hours, and then the stage manager gets you and he goes, okay, go up, stand here, start your lines. And you do like 3 lines, and they're like, okay, thank you. And then you're gone. And the whole reason for that is they want you on your mark. They want to understand what the lighting looks like and how you sound in the space. And once they get that, and that doesn't take long, they're done. So, like, move on to the next thing. There is, and I still have not cracked a more elegant way to do it than to just grind through it,
Yeah.
like, um, and just answer all the tech questions like on the spot, like stuff like that. Just sort of understanding how the sausage is made can do wonders for your patience. It can do wonders for your efficiency as far as like I need to do things to center myself and meditate. I can review my text. I can do any number of things while these people working on the back end, and I have no problem with that. It's not, you know, that's something.
Hmm.
And then also like from the production side, they tend to be more of the, the left-brained, very procedural people who enjoy it for their own reasons, but they just aren't in that touchy-feely space that performers are. Understanding like the emotions you go through to get on stage. I've been doing this a while. When I did my TED talk last year, I was still checking my hands to see if they were shaking. I was still having to center myself to make sure I could remember my stuff. Uh, um,
Yeah.
there was a snafu that happened on stage in front of the audience that I had to, recover from. So like, it's very harrowing, like even when it's in like a casual case. So yeah, the more empathy you can get, the better is the short version.
Absolutely. No, I remember when I was giving my TEDx talk last year, on one of the speaker trainings, our speaker coach goes, does everyone know their anxiety style? Because if you're an anxiety like control freak, you need to tell us now so we can kind of
Oh,
get
I
you
love
on stage and then get you out so you don't like upset everyone backstage and like kind of like ruin the vibe. And I was like, I'm just an anxious person. I just want to go first. Like otherwise I will have like a panic attack like if I'm third and like I wait too long because then it's like too much. And she was like,
right,
okay. And obviously anxiety style is not the only way that you choreograph the way that speakers come on stage and stuff like that. So it was just like I just told her because I was like, I need to get this off my chest that I have to go first because that's just how I am as a person. And she knows that. Like I'm always the first to go during trainings and stuff and
right,
practicing. So it's not that she doesn't already see that in me. Like you can tell I'm like running to raise my hand on Zoom. But that's a huge part. And it's funny that you say that actors don't like tech. when I was in theater, I loved tech rehearsals because I thought it was so cool that we have all the lights and we all get to be on the stage for once and we're not just kind of like in the back room. I thought it
Mhm.
was fun and I just kind of like sitting around doing nothing with my
Well,
friends. I thought that was
they're
fun. But I think
yeah,
when you
well,
get
they're
older, there's another level of anxiety to it, which I totally get.
yeah, there's that because it's like everything, and also like depending on how the production has gone, there can be a lot of like tense
Yes.
emotions. Um,
Yeah.
but the real danger, like from a directing standpoint, is that if your actors sit idle for too long, they just start doing whatever.
Yes.
You lose control of the room, and you lose the discipline of the cast. And yeah, I was in college, so like I hadn't quite gotten my like directorial social skills yet, but like I was just in the booth. We're doing a tech rehearsal, and like it's one of those things where like tech is where frustrations come out too.
Mhm.
So like these two members of the cast, they just start dancing, and we're trying to get this thing done,
Oh
and like
no.
I just kind of lost it.
Oh
And it's one of those like I feel terrible about it to this day, but they stopped, they got in line, they started doing the thing, and so it was like you feel like the parent who had that moment where it's just like, all right, the kid's doing what I need him to do, but I really feel bad about doing that.
yes. I know. It happens, or I'm just like, "Can
Yeah,
you just," or like, for me, I feel very lucky that, I do have a control on, I would say, like, sometimes, like, yelling. That being said, when I'm upset, I come off very passive aggressive. I'm like,
yeah,
Actually, can you stop that right now? We're not doing that right now." Like, I will straight up be, and I'm like, "That sounds just as mean." It doesn't like, I don't ha yelling is not the only way to get your point across, but sometimes it's just as as hurtful, and I know my end of like, "Oh my gosh, I need to be nicer
yeah,
even when someone's upsetting me." It's hard sometimes though when you're in that stress mode. Um, I loved what you said in the beginning of like you've gotten really good at concisely describing what you do. And I think that's sometimes the biggest
yeah,
problem for speakers is we just get
yes,
so passionate. We know so much about this topic. We just want to tell everyone everything. But then it's hard for sometimes organizers or, choreographers of events and stuff to really understand like where do you fit in this lineup? What advice do you have for these speakers who are kind of maybe struggling to they seem like they're making their idea smaller, but that's not the truth.
right. So uh, this is. I won't even say it's a common problem. It is just the condition of life. Like
Yes.
10 minutes is not a long time.
No.
So if you're giving certain types of talks, and you have and that timeline's even getting shorter. They were talking about like 8 minutes up in Atlanta
Yeah.
when together.
Yeah.
So so um so and this was something I struggled with my talk last year, where I had all of these things I wanted to cover. They were all very important to getting what I felt was an understanding of the point I was making. But at about halfway through the process, I gave like a draft, and one of the coaches was like, "I feel like I'm on a roller coaster and my knuckles are white because I'm trying to hold on for dear life to keep up with you and everything you're talking about." And that was actually the best advice I got that
Yeah.
entire process. Um, uh, I blew up my drive. There's a phrase I use where like blow it up and start over, where it's like
Yes.
literally just like trash it all. Don't trash it, but like we're not doing this version of the draft. So we're starting from scratch, and we will draw from this, but this is not the approach we're taking.
Exactly.
Um, and I had to do that, and I was actually getting blocked. Like I don't get writer's block. It's like and I was like, I just couldn't figure out how to approach this until I understood what the underlying like root system was to everything. And it was like I was talking about our relationship with art essentially.
Mhm.
And once I understood it through that specific lens, everything made a lot more sense. But you're not going to get to that point where you have that understanding until you do a few tries and make a few passes at it. But the main skill, and this is something that I talked with one of the other speakers. He's like, I can get up and I can do a 2 hour talk with slides and everything on the spot. I can just
Right.
do it because
Yes.
he's just familiar. He's just familiar enough to do it. He's like, this was incredibly difficult. And so he worked with his coach for a long time on like how to get everything distilled down. And the main thing is that like first everyone understands you don't have time, but the other thing is that like because you're swimming in the topic, you don't understand what the broad strokes are anymore,
Yeah.
because everything is, you can talk at length at everything. And like back in like 2004, John Kerry had this problem, like the Democratic nominee for president, like he would just get into the minutia of everything. And that's probably why he lost, among other things. So
Among other things.
like what he was known for as a politician is like he could not just summarize something. So
Yes.
so you have to really, really try and put yourself in the mindset of someone who is completely ignorant to what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, if you were dying and you have to pass on only one or two things about this topic, what would it be? You have to get into that sort of mindset.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah,
That's a great point.
I often tell people when I start working with them, I ask them, I'm like, okay, what's your topic? And I usually get a paragraph, and I go,
Hmm.
okay, great. Describe that to a 6-year-old, and then you see the gears turning.
Yeah, it's like, I
And
know. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a big one.
and and the 6-year-old version is always better.
Yes. No, it is. And it's like funny because I on the weekends I just volunteer at church with my with like 3-year-olds. That's the 3-year-old classroom I do. So I've gotten
Yeah,
really good at talking to a 3-year-old. But sometimes they give you such tough questions and you literally
right,
don't know how to describe it for a 3-year-old. They're like,
right.
"Why are you doing this though?" And I'm like, food. Like that's my like I don't like hungry. Why are we doing it like this? I don't know. But that's such a great point, and I love the way that you're phrasing that. Like if you were dying and this was your last sentence to ever say about this topic, how would you phrase it? How would you phrase it
Yeah.
that the entire thing would get across? And I remember, and this is such a random place for me. It's so funny where we get advice from and where we take inspiration from, but
Mhm.
I remember I was watching I never watched the original show, but I watched like a spinoff to the original show. And I was watching some interviews about them because I was like, I had no interest in the original show, but I like the spinoff. And all the cast were
Mhm.
like, yeah, it was really hard coming from the original show to do the spinoff because we had to rewrite essentially everything and reestablish
Mm.
these characters. Because what if
Right.
someone was watching the spinoff without the original? I was like, that's me. But then I was like, oh, but that's how you have to think about all of these topics. We think
Yeah.
people know all of these fancy terms, or you should know these fancy terms, or I'm speaking to a niche, so I can speak in fancy terms. It's like, no, that's honestly never really going to be the case, even when you're in those niches. You need
Yeah.
to be able to explain it very simply because they're going to check out just like anyone else. Even though they know what you're talking about, it's still easy for them to check out. So that's a great point. And Tom, I just really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so much fun. This has been amazing. Before we hop off, what are the best ways that people can reach out? And what are, if someone's thinking like, this might be something, like, what are some things that you can help people with and how can they find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find my company, Finale Events, Finale like the musical finale events .com, and that's just a summary of what I do. And then toward the end, you'll get what is basically a capability statement of just what I can do in the event space and
Amazing.
what I do for speakers. Um, and then uh, and then you can reach out and ask basic questions. I get a lot of questions about certain particular events, and there's help that I can offer
Hmm.
in a variety of ways. If you are a speaker and you're working, um, and you need to get a reel together, or you just need more evidence or different evidence, like either if you're starting out or if you're somebody just who wants to branch into something new and you don't have that evidence yet, because I can put shows together, we can do that in a variety of ways. We can
Amazing.
set something up and get something that looks good, that you have total ownership over the material, and represents you well, that you can use as a calling card, and just builds the thing. A lot of the people that we understand as like being rich and famous and powerful and wonderful all produced themselves, and so
Yeah.
that's something that also, that don't wait for permission, and
Yes.
I can help you in giving yourself permission to do things.
Love it. That accountability, you need it. I know
Yeah.
so many amazing movies, like the directors, they had to put nothing together to get what they wanted. And then, they
Oh
get
yeah.
the highest grosses film and stuff like that. That's so amazing to
Yeah.
watch. And we think, oh, that's because they have this access in Hollywood. It's like, we don't think about it for ourselves. Like, wait, I can do that too. It's not going to be the
Yeah.
same thing because it's just a different
People
world, but
Exactly. People get that access because they made something amazing themselves. Um,
exactly.
That
Definitely.
that's the most effective, most worthwhile use of your resources instead of just like I mean, like it's not. I'm not saying don't pound on the doors and don't pound the pavement, but like you're going to have much more to show for yourself
Yeah,
just
yeah.
doing the thing and
Well,
getting out there and doing it.
that's a great note to end on. I really appreciate your time today, Tom. This was amazing.
Yeah, it was
And to
great.
everyone watching, of course, and to everyone watching, I really appreciate you as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye.